So the 2024 Walt Disney Company shakeup is continuing to this very day between Bob Iger, the Disney Board of Directors, different Disney executives, over, of course, many different divisions over at the company. One of the biggest ones of all has a lot to do with the overall movement of the live-action adaptations of the animated classics that are going to be put out year after year, starting off, by the way, with Snow White 2025. The official trailer, the teaser trailer, technically, just dropped a couple of days ago at D23, and already it is getting ratioed across all forms of social media, throwing the Disney studio heads into a phase of panic. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Bob Iger is that we know that typically he likes to lie to the general public, to his core customer base, to the shareholders. This is exactly why I like to call him Bob Liger. Yes, I know I've said this multiple times, but it needs to always be said every now and again. But when you look at Bob Iger, he is one. He is the epitome of a CEO that loves to engage in full-on damage control when things are all going wrong, when Backlash is reaching a new height, when it comes to a movie like Snow White, especially with the reaction, the overall response from the general public based on what was presented at D23 with the Snow White trailer. Let's get into this. Now, we already know that Bob Iger is trying to fix things for 2025. He plans to step down in 2026. He wants to leave on a high note. He wants to have a series of success points, not just next year, but also throughout the beginning of 2026. However, with many divisions at the Walt Disney Company going through various setbacks and challenges, one major development has more to do with the Disney CEO Bob Iger attacking the public after the backlash over the Snow White 2025 trailer. Already Bob Iger is heading into full-on damage control over the upcoming 25 film, where he delivered the following. As CEO, it is my responsibility to remain transparent with our entire core customer base that remains loyal to our products and properties. However, one challenge that we here at the Walt Disney Company have been dealing with involves a loud minority of the general public that remains opposed to our support of diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially in our upcoming Snow White 2025 film that we are so very proud of since it supports the many communities we want to represent. What we do not tolerate here at the Disney Company, and what we find to be quite offensive, are those that aim at a product of ours, for example, our live-action iteration of Snow White, and label this as some form of an ideology or agenda-driven project. I am here to say that this is all false, and our support for DEI has nothing to do with any sort of an agenda. Anyone who claims this, from what we understand, is trying to build a false narrative on their end. With Ms. Zegler at the forefront of this film, we agree ultimately that we are happy and successful at representing diversity yet again in one of our newest live-action features. We find it to be extremely irresponsible for those making such ridiculous comments about our newest film, Snow White, and our feature film as coming from some form of an agenda. This is an ongoing challenge that we deal with in today's day and age, where you have very negative comments made public just to fit a narrative. Our Disney analysts have confirmed, after heavy research, that those holding deep criticism from the wrong areas over our latest live-action remake, Snow White, is nothing more than a minority and should be disregarded. I speak to all of our core customers and shareholders to believe in our products, especially with our new adaptation of Snow White that will go on a different tail to reshape the brand. Now guys, let me just stop here before we move on. Now there he goes again, talking about reshaping the brand and how basically DEI is not an agenda. This is a typical Bob Iger robotic response, right? That, DEI is something that is used as a strategy to reach to a more wider global audience. This is what Bob Iger always likes to repeat, and that it has nothing to do with any kind of an ideology or any kind of an agenda. They will actually deny this time and time again, and the main purpose of doing that, by the way, guys, is to keep the shareholders very happy, to believe that the following year is going to be a very successful one, apart from what's going on with the current one. So that's Bob Iger for you, and that's of course exactly what he's doing now to protect this movie at all costs. Now, we know that the trailer is getting bombarded with dislikes. It is getting ratioed to no degree that we have, of course, never seen before since The Acolyte, quite frankly. It's really up there in dislikes, and this is something that Disney's very worried about because of how much money they poured into this film. Over $350 million, hundreds of millions of dollars into this thing. And basically that's not putting marketing expenses into the equation at all. So it's even way above that. Now, moving on, he goes on to conclude, it would be wise for anyone projecting negative inflammatory comments to remain quiet and silent over a product that has not been released to the general public yet, and to let the product speak for itself. So basically, guys, Bob Iger is telling you guys to shut up. Our support for DEI, he says, has never been better, and we aim to reshape the future here at the Walt Disney Company by continuing to represent everyone coming from different communities. It is my responsibility to make this very clear. Disney is and never will be a company that pushes any level of an agenda. Not with our Snow White film and not with any other live-action adaptation we aim to create based on our animated classics. To say that we are engaging in a cultural war is very intense and completely untrue, and we ask everyone to refrain from pushing that false narrative about the company. Now, here's the other problem, is that Bob Iger is continuing to say that DEI has nothing to do with an agenda. Well, I'm here to say DEI is an agenda, alright? DEI is the epitome of an agenda. You can't redefine it. Diversity, equity, inclusion, over proper storytelling, over proper character development, or a well thought out story is an ideology. Nothing better than that we could really represent, or talk about. That's basically the overall definition. DEI is an agenda, period, the end. Now, Bob Iger obviously has no clue what he's talking about. Well, he does have a clue. I mean, he is deliberate with everything that he says, let's be honest here, but in a sense, as a CEO, he is by far the worst CEO in Disney history. He definitely outperforms Bob Chapek as the worst CEO because basically he keeps on doubling down, he keeps on going into this bait and switch scenario, making people believe that Disney's heading in a better direction, then flip-flops and goes back on the DEI train, right? So the Snow White movie in particular, the reason why I say it's going to be a disaster, it doesn't have to do strictly with the overall reactions or the responses from the general public. Not even the overall trailer that we saw with the footage, but also the test screenings failing miserably behind the scenes and how this really threw the Walt Disney Company into a full-on state of panic. That's exactly why they're in damage control. That's exactly why they actually refrained from putting out that trailer for well over a year. By the way, guys, this trailer existed for a year plus. They could have put this thing out so very long ago, but they refused to until the reshoots were all finished and pretty much in the rearview mirror. So again, like I say, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about Bob Iger, about the Walt Disney Company, about the current status of the Snow White film, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.